Hi, everyone. I'm Britt. I think I've met a lot of you. He, him pronouns, and member of the subcommittee as part of PCCEP.
Cool. Taji Chestnut, he, him, also a member of the youth subcommittee and as well as the co-chair for the general body. I'm just going to call on people if that's okay. Barbara, would you like to go?
Yeah, Barbara Bushinsky, she, her, and Portland Cop Watch.
Thank you. Hey, Brian, you want to go?
How's it going? My name is Brian, he, him, and I'm a community member.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Jared?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Jared Hager with, I use he, him for my pronouns, and I'm with the Department of Justice, attending in my role as the monitor of the settlement agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Sowers?
Only observing from the public.
Thank you. Claudia?
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Claudia, the project assistant for PCCEP, and thank you guys all for being here this evening. And I do want to apologize again for that mistake with the Zoom link, but I'm glad to see everyone here, so thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Claudia. And Mary Claire, would you like to go?
Hi there, I'm Mary Claire Buckley, and I work at the Portland Police Bureau, and I'm here in my role as DOJ compliance for the Bureau.
Thank you. And Theo?
Hello all. Sorry I'm a little late. I had a 3 that went a little long. It's nice to see you all. I'm a staff member for PCCEP.
Thank you. Cool. So just to hop right into it, we have a pretty full agenda for today. Oh, and Marcia just joined us as well.
Hello.
Hi, Marcia. Yeah, as I was saying, we have a pretty stacked agenda for today. The first item is what I'll be leading, and then hey, Britt, can you make sure Alana is coming? So there's
I'll check with her.
Cool, thank you. But yeah, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Directive Recommendation. So basically, there was a conversation at, I believe it was the December meeting, around the way PCCEP shall handle its process of commenting on on directives. And after that, and multiple conversations with other community members, I wanted to bring it to this subcommittee to discuss potentially drafting another recommendation to PBB in regards to the process for directives. And it seems like a pretty pertinent conversation to the current situation and across the country, really, in talking about police violence, but also as we work to be more transparent and more equitable within our policing system. How we can do that is really important. So that's the reason I'm sort of bringing up the issue. I think there was a couple of key areas we wanted to talk about, but I also wanted to make sure folks are aware of the current process of the directives and sort of understanding where some of those reservations and issues people have come from. I can attempt to the best of my ability to describe it, but it might come out a lot clearer if Mary Claire, would you be willing to lightly just say, the process as it stands now for directives, if that would be, could you share that information?
Sure, I'll give my best, although I should have had Ashley with you. But as many of you know, there's directives are what instructs Bureau members how to perform their duties, and there are over 200 different directives currently in the Bureau. We have a policy team that is responsible for reviewing those and revising them as they come up. Prior to DOJ, directives were supposed to be reviewed every 2 years. DOJ, when they came to town, identified 47, and now there are probably 48 ones that they were particularly interested in. And we call them DOJ-related policies, and those are required by the settlement agreement to be reviewed annually until DOJ were to go away. And so we have two sort of schedules. So we have a policy team that has attempted, although as you can imagine, it has been, most difficult to keep up with that schedule. We have focused mostly for the last 7 years on DOJ, keeping at least the DOJ directives in a timely fashion. So what will happen is when a directive is either due for its annual review or its other review, or if, a particular issue comes up that requires that either the mayor's office or the bureau or some other external situations, such as a change in state law or a case from the court, Oregon Courts of Appeals comes up, there are times when those have to be addressed immediately. So, but whatever policy we're looking at, we have a system. There is a directive actually on directives process, and that's 010.00, in case you want to look it up in the directives manual, and that's on our website. But what happens is that the current, if there's already a current policy on the topic, that policy is posted to the directives page of the Bureau's website for what's called universal review. That first review is for 15 days. It used to be for 30, but we ended up switching it around and giving more time for the second review, because what the first review is what the policy is as it stands. So we asked the public and members to comment on what the language of the policy as it stands now, what issues, concerns, changes you might like. We post that. It stays up and usually the postings are the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month, depending upon our schedule. There is a sign up that you can, if you want to receive those automatically, you can sign up on the website to get those notifications on the 1st and the 15th. Otherwise, we're now actually sending it to PCCEP office, and I believe the PCCEP office is sending them out to you. So you know what's being, up for review during each month. And then, once that first review period is done, then we would take that directive down and review all the comments. The team reviews the comments and starts drafting based on those comments, both internal and external, the language that we're going to propose for the revision. Once that time period called executive reconciliation is completed, it has to go through, we obviously get our direction from the chief. It's not the policy team that makes the directives in the Bureau. It is ultimately the chief's decision. But our team does research on best practices, on what other cities or states or jurisdictions are doing at the on a particular policy or what have you. Does the research, brings it to the chief's office. We have policy meetings on a monthly basis with all the chiefs to get their direction, and then we write up the thing. Then it goes back up on the website for what we call second universal review, and that is the document which is the proposed language of what the Bureau would, based on all the comments that have been received, what we're proposing is the final language of the directive. And then there are 30 days for the public to comment on that version, because that actually is the language that we're looking to go forward on. So after, after 30 days, it would come down from that. We would see if there were any other comments, received by the community or by anybody else, see if we should adjust that at all. If so, then we take it back to the chief, and eventually the chief will buy off, and it's then enacted. Each member has to then read and acknowledge it. They have 30 days to do that, and then the policy, it takes effect after the 30 days. Let me think what else I was going to tell you about the process there. I think that's, but comments can come in about any policy at any time. If you happen to be looking at something and you want to send a comment, but it's not the particular time that we're looking at it for whatever reason, it's not time for its annual review, or we haven't scheduled it for universal, any comments that come in either prior to our posting or after it's closed are saved, and we consider those. And also, I will tell you that at the end, after we have taken that, the second review, and it's posted, there is an executive summary posted with the language of the directive that explains what, in general, what changes have been made and why, what comments came in, why we accepted some or didn't accept others. And there's also, I believe, a spreadsheet that will show all the public comments that came in, so that everybody's aware of what information we had when making this decision. So that's basically gives you sort of the overview of the current process.
Thank you so
I'd be happy
much.
to answer any questions. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was a really good overview. I think and it also clarified a couple of things I actually didn't remember, didn't have on my little notes. What the point I bring up for the directive recommendation is around, it was initially around extending the 15 days, and it was also around ways the comments were the ways the comments were not necessarily received, but shown to the rest of the public or not shown to the rest of the public. Because I think that was something else raised at one of the conversations I had around the directives, is that when people post comments, you can see the comments after the first review, I believe is how it goes, and then it just shows you all the comments after that, and when you get the second review, right? Is that how it goes? Right? Yeah. And so that if there was a way to somehow show them in real time, I don't know if that is the thing though, just because I know you do get you do get comments probably
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you knew if that is something you've ever looked into, from your office's perspective.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I certainly could check on whether they're given real time. You also have to understand that some of this, our website is part of the city's website. And so it's whether the city's website actually allows for that kind of adaptation. I just don't know, but I can certainly check to see whether if comments, come in, could they be posted on an, a live basis or whatever. But I'm just not sure what the technological capabilities of this system are, but I can certainly look into that. And as for, we did make a presentation to the Policy and Settlement Agreement Subcommittee where we talked about PCCEP's role in this. We obviously are not going to hold PCCEP to the PCCEP council, to the timelines necessarily of the community. So if the 15 days is up, then we have what's called the executive reconciliation, where we're considering all this stuff. That's when we anticipated and invited the PCCEP to, place, some role if the 15 days wasn't enough, or you had questions about the current one. But I think really what you probably even want more is to be involved after the, the proposed new language is posted. And that would be during the second universal review. And we can also set, a process where after we do that, and during that the 30-day period, we can, involve PCCEP in that process is all, because we have these timelines, but, invariably policies take a lot longer than it's just not quite that cut and dry that we posted. Comes down to 15, reconciliation can be anywhere from weeks to months, to be honest with you, depending upon the complexity, because, you know, it's one thing to have PPB policies, but when you have DOJ, we have to get DOJ's approval too. And so they're part of the, and COCL also play a role. We have to take these policies and have policy directive meetings with those entities as well to get their, you know, feedback and buy off on the thing. So, you know, there is lots of, you know, sort of room to work these policies after, you know, both universal reviews.
You said there was 48 DOJ policies that were,
Yes.
does that mean you review those on an annual basis?
Yes,
Okay.
that's our attempt. Yes.
Yeah.
We post them, and they don't necessarily get done that quickly because there's so much, you know, but yes, we post them on an annual basis. And to that end, we did provide PCCEP with a list of all of the policies that have been identified by DOJ as of interest to them. We call them DOJ related, as I said. They will also now have, when they're posted on the website, they will have a star next to their number or the title of the policy, so you will know that it relates to, it has particular interest to the DOJ or to the settlement agreement or what have you. So all the force policies, the training policies, that kind of stuff will all be things that DOJ weighs in on and ultimately has to approve before we make any changes. So you have that list, and they'll also be readily identified in the future by that asterisk when you look on the website.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, does anyone else have any questions or comments on this particular topic? I think there's still, you know, a lot of space to talk about whether or not a formal recommendation is necessary, or if we should work to, I think that was one of the questions, was just getting that list. And I don't know if, Theo, you have that list available. I didn't know that was available somewhere.
The directives went to Anne, I believe.
Oh, okay. I'll
That's
reach out.
correct.
Okay.
She asked, and matter of fact, she called me earlier today and said she was going to send something out to all of you that, you know, identified those, plus provide the, I think the YouTube of Ashley, Ashley Lancaster is my policy director, and she had done that presentation at the subcommittee, so she was going to send that out to all of you too, because at some point at the last meeting, you may recall that Lakiana had indicated that he hadn't been, you know, he didn't think that the PCCEP had been trained on the, you know, the process of directive review. And in fact, we had done that. And so now that's going to, I think, be forwarded to all of you. And then if there are any questions, I told them we would be happy to speak to the whole group in the January meeting, but I think them trying to decide whether her YouTube video of the process was sufficient for you or whether you wanted a whole presentation. So whatever you guys decide.
Yeah, Anne sent that out this afternoon, like sometime around 3 o'clock. So she did send that information out. And I think they're going to talk about that again tomorrow, the settlement agreement, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Thanks, Marcia.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna then just follow up with Anne before I make next steps on the recommendation. I just want to talk with her about it as it goes. But is there any other people who have any questions around what we've already just discussed? And any, you know, if people have been involved with directives before that wanted to discuss anything, then this would be your time. If not, we can save it for when the settlement agreement talks, or the settlement agreement policy subcommittee talks about it.
You know, Taji, if I could, I would just, you know, we encourage the PCCEP and anyone to, you know, participate in this process. We've developed it over the years with DOJ. We, you know, earnestly seek public comment on all these directives. We look at them through an equity lens, and so anybody sees something that they have concern about, we're more than happy to you know, address those or hear your, you know, comments or concerns. These policies are only as good as the, you know, the people that, you know, comment and give us, you know, their feedback so that we can respond and or explain why, you know, because sometimes people want things in and I think it's often good to explain why something either doesn't belong in that particular directive or doesn't belong in a directive at all or what have you. So I think having the interaction between PCCEP, the subcommittees or the full committee, would benefit all of us.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also, I think this was something I forgot to put on the agenda, but following up from a recommendation that we worked on as a subcommittee back in October, I don't know if the PPB or the mayor's office is still in the works of their official response on that recommendation. It was the identification recommendation. It discussed, well, mainly the topic was the directive relating to identification and and suggestions of changes to be made to that.
Yeah, and I believe that policy is under review, at this time. I would also note, I'm glad you brought that up, because you also made a recommendation about procedural justice. And in fact, my team developed one, and we hadn't heard anything back from PCCEP about the draft or any comments on that. So I think Ann also, I sent that to Ann as well, so that you could pick that back up. I think it was when Andrew was still around or what have you, but it sort of fell off the table too. You had asked for that. We responded and gave you a proposed thing, and it just hadn't been followed up by any of the PCCEP subcommittees or something. So I think Ann's gonna bring that up at the subcommittee, policy subcommittee tomorrow. So I will check.
I saw
but
that.
the last I understood, that identification one was still being worked on. That policy has not been completed yet.
Okay.
So
Because
your comments
it's not
are
one of
being considered. Oh, no, I just meant your comments were received and are being considered with the revision of that directive.
I'm assuming that's not one of the 48 DOJ related? No, okay. Is that why it's probably not been reviewed so long for a while?
Right, that's right, because since then we have all of those, plus the mayor had a 19-point plan, so he directed us to take other ones out of that weren't in the order. And that's why I have to tell you, Ann originally asked for a calendar of how we were going to review these on an annual basis, and I just can't give you that. What we gave her was a list of the ones we hope to at least start addressing it by the first quarter of this year. But he wanted a new one on for the chokehold, so we had to go back to that directive and include some language that came out of the legislature. Also wanted one change up consent searches. So we've spent a great deal of time trying to work on that, which we hadn't anticipated being part of our schedule, but it was one of the mayor's, as I said, 19 points that he had promised during his campaign that was going to be addressed. And so so some things just come up and sort of
make it
supersede the ones that we were working on, because like I said, I have a team of two. It should be three, but right now we're short, and so they have to do all of this work just between the two of them at this point. So it's just they do them as directed by either the mayor's office or by the chief's office.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary Claire, for your
report.
Thank you. If there's no more questions on those specific, our former recommendations plus potential future ones, we'll go to the next point on the agenda. But I will leave space right now if there's anyone who wanted to comment on anything we've talked about so far.
Taji, could I ask Mary Claire a question just real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mary Claire, is there someone that we could check in with, either PCCEP or a community member, about the identification recommendation, who may have a report on where it is and on the list or what have you?
Sure, I can. There is a email address for the directives team, which I believe is PPB directives at portlandoregon.gov, but also Ashley or or Laurel can answer, and I certainly would ask them and have the answer, by tomorrow when we do the policy team. I'll get an update on it, but I know that it is still hanging out there, as they say. But I certainly can get you that, or you can contact the policy team if you want it directly to them.
Thank you.
You bet.
Awesome. I'm gonna skip over the oversight one because I think I don't have the information I need on that right now. The meeting I was supposed to get information on got moved to February, so apologies for that. Basically, I mean, pardon?
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. But on the oversight topic, is there someone you or we should just email this about?
Well, no,
you want to wait till the next meeting?
I don't know the developments of the oversight committee besides the fact that it's currently still developing. Like, I don't know any details really at all. So I didn't get to ask the question to Sam or Asena when we were supposed to have our check-in before this meeting, and they moved it to February. So I won't. Well, I'll see Sam after this meeting, but it wouldn't be very helpful for this meeting. So apologies. Basically, if anyone was interested, we're working. We as a youth subcommittee, we're trying to understand how the membership layout was going to look for the oversight committee. But we don't know that, so I can't give any updates or advocate for anything right now. So unless there is anyone from the mayors or city that has any information on the oversight committee on the call. I didn't think so, because I think, yeah, it's probably not. So that's fine. We'll probably just table that for February's meeting, which is okay. I want to go to the other one. Britt, you were sort of going to talk about this, but you want to quickly? I think mainly it was about just the
outreach.
Yeah,
I can start that. And then I believe both you and I have to go soonish, but Alana's also briefed on the rest of the meeting. Anyway, so for outreach, this is something we talked about in a few different capacities. It's always generally an issue, like how do we get people involved in any one of our initiatives? I think that generally we have success with. So in the past, for example, we've held a town hall with young people, and we've shared the work we're working on and gotten people's feedback and incorporated that into our final policy recommendations, which is certainly one valid way to perform outreach. But what we're trying to do going forward is have more continued involvement from at least a few people who know the ins and outs of the work, and thus can be a bigger part of advising and supporting some of these recommendations and ultimately what our work looks like. So one thing we want to do to that regard is come up with an email list of everyone who's attended our meetings in the past. So from our creation a couple of years ago, and share updates of what we're working on, invite them to meetings, and just generally ask them to be involved and to engage their peers and friends and family members, etc. And as part of that, we also want to start putting together a regular flyer that's a little more visual that we can share in that email list. But then I think also just that we as members and anyone else who's able to share it can share it with others that we think would want to be involved in this work. So those were two tangible things. I think there are also a few other organizations that we'd collected that we just thought generally we could reach out to again. Some I believe we've reached out to in the past, but we just haven't heard back from or haven't fully communicated with, and then a few new ones as well. Either communicating directly to people at those organizations we want to get involved, or maybe trying to use them as a pass through to other people. Does that cover it, Taji?
Yeah, and then Claudia, I'm sure you were going to say what I think, and you can't. Yeah, go ahead and share.
Oh, you can go ahead and.
So Claudia went ahead and was able to send me a list of the attendees of the youth subcommittee as from the beginning. Was that what I read? I didn't get a chance to click.
Yeah, so I sent you the list. The Excel sheet that I sent you guys is for April through December of this year, with all the signups from the youth subcommittee meetings. And then I have, actually after this meeting, I'm gonna go and scan the sign-up sheets that I was able to collect most of the sign-in sheets. The only ones I didn't get. So looking back, I was like, okay, so the youth subcommittee basically got started in around like March 2019. So I have sign-in sheets for that year. aside from, I couldn't locate the August or November one. Like I looked, I was in the office for a while looking, so I do apologize for that, but I do have the ones for,
The rest of the months?
yeah. So I'll go get those scanned for you guys after this and then get that over to you. But so yeah, that Excel sheet that you guys have now is just for last year.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So that's an effort we're going to be working on, probably just not during the subcommittee, obviously, and working on just developing that list together, and then also just using a standard graphic for the meetings on the monthly Mondays. Cool. Is there any questions or thoughts about what we're discussing related to like outreach, related to like youth participation? I know that I can't, no, actually, yeah, the only other youth in here is Brian. But yeah, just wondering if anyone else had any thoughts on this particular topic. Yeah, Theo, you don't have to, I don't have to call you, go ahead.
Just a reminder, I had a meeting with the budget folk today, so I just wanted to remind you of your youth subcommittee pot of money that should get spent at some point. No pressure, but it's there, and it could do some good things in terms of outreach and communications.
Yeah, and I also remember we did use, I don't know if we used that funds or some other funds to, when we had our restorative justice recommendation town hall, which did have some youth participation. I think it's just an interesting balance of like having folks, young people come to meetings, especially if they aren't like pertaining to a specific recommendation, as Britt was mentioning. So that's why we think it might just be more beneficial when we do have recommendations we want to bring up, whether they relate to youth or whether they're just something we bring up, like the identification one, for example, and getting input on them then. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. Any other thoughts, questions, opinions? Alrighty. I'm supposed to go to this 4:30 meeting. So Alana, do you want to take the lead from here? But I can stay for a little bit if anyone, or it's probably good. I mean, it's a clear item, and the meeting will probably just end at 45 then.
Yeah. So basically, Aaron Schmatz, was a former Youth Services Division sergeant, and Youth Services Division was disbanded. But essentially, he's focused on kind of youth policy, and he's recently been working on some like youth policy surrounding training. And so we would just love to hear more about that, and maybe have him present in February. About kind of his work on that and how we could support possibly, or just hear more about it.
Yeah, I mean, other information I would just add to that would be Schmatz is the only one left in the youth service division, so he's sharing info that hopefully will be encompassing what some of the youth service division officers were receiving when they were when the division existed, as well as the fact that from my understanding, and Mary Claire, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the youth, sorry, you look like you're doing something else, apologies. But the youth service division was the only division that received the procedural justice training by Deidre from DCJ, right? Or did the whole Bureau get a separate procedural justice training?
You know, we've had procedural,
Deidre Gibson Karen, she works for DCJ. She was facilitating the training, and I think it might have been just for the SROs actually.
Might have been. We've had other procedural justice training at in-service, and you know we have our own procedural justice trainer at in the training division. But you may be right that particular training only was for that particular unit.
Mm-hmm.
Her name doesn't ring a bell, so I don't think she presented it in service because I would have observed it. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. That was just a quick off topic. Yeah, that's I think it'll be exciting to hear from Sergeant Schmatz and just learn about the developments of that training. We discussed it back in June or July, So maybe there'll be something, maybe there'll be a video, or maybe there'll be just a presentation on what his plans are in ensuring that the entire Bureau is really aware of youth-related issues, youth-related, approaching youth in a different way. Ironically enough, this pertains to a training Britt and I worked on there as well, so they might be using that content as well. That's from my understanding.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please, yeah.
So your purpose is to just understand what they're doing now that there are no SROs? Is that what you're wanting to know? Or what you're wanting to know what PPP is doing with the youth lens now that there isn't a specific youth services division?
It's kind of like a both, but it's more of like, what is Aaron specifically? His role was really that transition to having no youth service division, and what will that result in if there's no like specific trained officers,
Does it make sense? And you might have a better idea since you're still really involved with stuff with the juvenile department, but does it make sense to have folks from like Deidre or Mary talk about how they've amended things
without YSD,
or to have a better comprehensive understanding of they still work together, but in what ways, and how does this look different, and what's the impact for young people in our community?
Right.
That's just a suggestion that I think maybe could be
good. I think it could be paired and or just do 2 separate meetings at whatever works best. But that's a really great idea. Thank you, Marcia. I think we should bring that topic up. And does everyone else get what we're discussing? It's not everyone's face, so I can't thumbs up at all, but okay. I think everyone's on the same page, hopefully. The plan was to get some folks from DCJ as well who could bring that other perspective, because YSD, Youth Service Division, worked a lot with DCJ, as they do a lot of.
And the City of Office of Violence Prevention. I mean, it could make sense to bring the 3 together, talk about what does that look like.
I'm pretty sure OVP doesn't do anything anymore. Now it's not even the Office of Youth Violence Prevention. Now it's just the Office of Violence Prevention, right?
Yes, but I suspect they still work with a lot of youth because they have a pretty robust mentoring program.
Oh, okay.
So it could be good to just have an understanding of all of those things together if you can get somebody from their office to attend. I like your strategy of your outreach strategy. I think it's similar to how we're going to be doing the racial equity groups. We're going to start spotlighting different communities every month. So for those of you who are willing and able, join us next week. We're going to be hopefully hearing from lots of people from the Latino community and having some youth voice, hopefully.
Yes, sounds great. And please, everyone, go to the racial. Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. Did you have a question?
I do. What do these initials mean? DCJ, and then there was another one.
I'm sorry for my use of acronyms. I used to be on the other side of that and hate when people use acronyms. So I really hate it. I'm sorry.
It's convenient, but sometimes I don't even know what is being taught.
No, that's understandable. Apologies. So Department of Community Justice is the acronym, DCJ. They oversee, from my understanding, juvenile and adult is also under that same body. It's basically just basically the system. Marcia could probably literally worked for them, so please explain it.
Yeah, the Department of Community Justice oversees the parole and probation supervision, community supervision. So we have they, and I no longer work there. They have a adult supervision, adult services division under Erica Pruitt, who also oversees the entire division. And then there's the juvenile services division, which is like family court and whatnot. Youth who are on probation.
Gotcha.
Or at risk of becoming on probation.
Yeah. And so I'm excited to hopefully hear from, I believe Deidre would love to probably talk with us, or Mary as well. So yeah. Oh, another update we could give y'all about the restorative justice recommendation. We are very close to having the LIPSIC executive committee review the new one-pager for the youth subcommittee, and that hopefully will happen in February. They'll review it at their meeting, but we're finalizing it in January. So hopefully it'll be ready in February, and then once it's official, then we'll sort of work backwards from there. I'm not sure exactly the next steps on that, but that is where we are on that next step. I wanted to make sure people keep getting updates on that. Anything, I can't think of anything else. Yeah, I mean, part one of the recommendation relates a lot to training and as well as the procedural justice policy directive that Mary Claire mentioned. So we'll, I'll follow up with Marlon about that. Sorry, last question to bug you, Mary Claire. Did they hire the equity trainer for the PPP, for the training division?
They did the interviews, and I believe they are in the process of making a decision, and then they'll go through the background process. So it might be a little bit still till they actually, but they're already to the point of selecting.
Gotcha.
And then there's one other position that they're going to be looking at too. So it's, yeah, that's moving forward. That's about the only hiring that the Bureau is doing at the moment. So that's good.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Alana, unless there's anything else you could remember, I think we could probably just be safe to end it now and call it together back in February when we have more updates and info for folks. Is that good, Alana? Cool. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Taji, I was just going to say, to Marcia's point, I know that Aaron is working with other folks, so it might be for next month if you want him to come, but to have those other folks and show how they are in fact working together still. You know, he's working very diligently. He originally was trying to get our youth advisory council going, and that's been obviously difficult because of the schools not or being remote and stuff, but he is actively engaging with all sorts. So I think that would be a really beneficial thing to hear about, those efforts that are continuing to be made on a daily basis to work with youth. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear from him and the partners he's been working with. So yeah, I will hopefully have him in at the February meeting. So please come and tell people about it. We'll get a flyer together for it and send it out. So thank you, everyone. And have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.
I'm sorry.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you all for being here.
Bye. Thanks.